구원해준 나의 천사 나의 세상 난 이상 새 고향이 널 만나러
Ryan felt the cold floor press against her bare foot as she stepped into the bedroom, her skin prickling at the quiet that followed her from the dining table. Dinner had passed like every other night, dull, wordless, a shadow of what could have been warmth. The only sound that had broken the stillness was his voice answering her question about the food. "Good," he said, flat and final, as though a single word could stitch together the widening silence between them. It fell short. It always did. She found herself trying to keep conversations alive with little threats, no matter how fragile. "Could you help me find the remote? Could you pass me that spice? Are you coming home soon?" Harmless questions, crafted carefully, simple to hear him speak. But even then he gave her nothing more than nods, or a clipped word tossed her way like crumbs. It was enough to remind her he existed in her orbit, but never enough to let her feel part of his world. There was only one moment when his words had carried something heavier, something that lingered in her chest. Right after their wedding, his voice was low but steady. "You can tell me if you're not comfortable here. I'm not forcing you to stay." She had not been uncomfortable. She had not been unwilling. She had not said no to this marriage. But he had. Jimin had never been ready. He had bowed to the weight of his parents' pressure. And the day said yes, his heart had already said no. From then, the distance became his refuge. He gave her what was necessary to live comfortably, as if she were another responsibility he must fulfill. But what she needed most, his attention, his affection, his presence, he never reached for, as though love itself was forbidden. Each time she caught his gaze, it slid away before it could meet hers fully. Each night the space beside her on the bed felt colder than the floor beneath her feet. She wondered if he noticed the silence but he built, or if he had learned to live inside it. She longed for his words, the kind that could breathe life into the walls that felt more like barriers than shelter. She ached for his stare, the weight of his presence lingering on her. She wished for his affection, yet all she received was absence wrapped in civility. When she finally lied down on the bed, she pulled the blanket around her body, cocooning herself in borrowed warmth. No good night, no gentle words. None had come for so long that even the silence felt rehearsed, practiced, expected. The sound of the door opening drifted into the room, soft footsteps brushing against the wooden floor. The other side of the mattress sank gently with his weight. Yet, between them stretched a space wider than the night sky, unreachable and unspoken. The faint glow of the bedside lamp flickered once before surrendering to darkness, wrapping them in a quiet that felt heavier than words. And in that darkness, her soul finally broke free. unguarded, unseen, unacknowledged. She let the tears fall, hot and relentless, soaking into the pillow beneath her cheek. There were the tears she could never let him witness, the ones that spoke of loneliness, longing, and love she had nowhere to place. She buried her sobs into the fabric, muffling the sound, her chest aching from holding back too much for too long. Only in these hidden hours could she let herself shatter, knowing the night would keep her secret. Jimin lay beside her, his eyes wide in the dark. Sleep never came, not even for a moment. His body turned, restless, but no position brought comfort. The weight pressing on his chest was heavier than any blanket could be. What was he doing? Why was he choosing this silence, this distance? Why was he letting her suffer with him when she had done nothing wrong? She had entered their marriage with hope, while he had only carried dread. It was not her fault. She was kind, gentle, the kind of person anyone would wish for. But he was not ready. He was not capable. His life had already been unraveling before she arrived, and she had walked into his ruins. Since the wedding, everything had spiraled. His business faltered, his focus cracked, his energy faded. Frustration clouded him each day, but he never allowed it to touch her. She did not deserve his shadows, yet he offered her nothing else either. Every time she tried to talk, he felt himself slipping further away, desperate to escape her attempts. He had even told her she could leave, free herself from him, but she stayed, holding on to dreams he could never give, dreams he crushed without meaning to. He was drowning in thoughts when a faint sound pierced the silence. Muffled cries. His breath stalled. His heart clenched. Slowly he blinked into the dark and turned. His heart hesitated before switching on the lamp, casting a soft glow across the room. Ryan's back was to him, her body trembling beneath the blanket, shoulders shaking with the sobs she tried to bury. The sight cracked something inside him. He had thought the silence was easier, but seeing her break made his own walls tremble. Ryan, his voice trembled as if the syllables had been buried for too long. It was the first time he had called her name since the vows that tied them together. The word hovered in the darkness, uncertain, almost foreign on his tongue. But she did not respond. Only her muffled cries filled the silence, pressing into the pillow like confessions she could not voice. Tears streamed unchecked, and in the faint glow he could see them glistening against her pale cheek. His hand lifted slowly, trembling, hovering above her arm as though the space between them were a barrier he did not deserve to cross. He almost withdrew, but it came, her whisper, so faint he almost thought he imagined it. Jimin, Her voice was cracked, raw, filled with longing. The sound made his breath falter, his chest tighten. She had called his name as if it carried hope, as if even in her pain she still wanted him close. Blinking hard, he finally touched her arm, her hesitant grace, tender and cautious, as though she might break beneath his fingers. Slowly he coaxed her to turn toward her. Her face met the faint light, tear stained, lips parted, eyes closed in exhaustion. "Wyan," he said again, steadier this time, though his throat burned. His voice carried the weight of the silence he had forced upon him. "Jimin," she whispered, broken. "Jimin," she repeated, as though saying his name was the only thread holding her together. Her trembling hand reached for him, curling into his arm. With fragile desperation, she clung to him, as if afraid he might slip away like the rest of her fading dreams. His chest ached, his guilt deepening with every shiver that left her. Then, like the slow release of a storm, her sobs softened. The sharp edge of her crying dulled into shallow, unsteady breaths. She pressed closer, her arms curling around his, her tears soaking into his skin before her breathing finally evened down in sleep. Jimin stayed still, unmoving, watching the fragile rise and fall of her chest. Her face, damp and weary, rested against him, as though she had finally found solace. He realized silence could carry both ruin and grace. His back sank into the soft mattress as he finally lay flat, her forehead resting against his arm. She had curled herself tightly around him, as if her body sought in sleep what her heart was too afraid to ask awake. Jimin lifted his other hand and rested the back of it against his forehead, staring blankly at the ceiling. The shadows above him stretched like quiet reminders of everything he could not say, everything he had chosen to withhold. Her breathing was steady now, her sobs long gone, replaced by a fragile peace. In sleep, she drifted closer, closing the space he had kept between them for so long. Her warmth pressed into him, making his chest feel both heavy and alive. He wondered what kind of dream she had slipped into, one where she finally reached for him, one where love was not restrained, where his name left her lips open, where silence no longer carved walls between them, or perhaps just a dream of being held. And there, in the stillness of the night, he let himself look at her properly, tear streaked yet gentle in slumber, her presence curled around him like a plea. He wondered if he was strong enough to face the answer.